All right, let's dive into another deep dive. This time, it's Matthew McConaughey's memoir, Greenlights.
Oh, yeah, I saw you had that one on the list.
We're using this cool book review, and honestly, it looks like there's way more to this than just a typical Hollywood story.
You think so?
Yeah, so we're going to try and pull out the really interesting stuff, the stuff that makes you go, wait, what?
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Like we're talking about his wild childhood, how he stumbled into stardom, and then there's this whole philosophy he's got about navigating life. It's called Greenlights.
Sounds like McConaughey. All right, hit me with it.
So one thing that really jumps out from the review is just how honest he is in this book.
Yeah.
It's not just him bragging about his successes. He really gets into the messy parts of his life, and I think that's where the really good stuff is.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, the review talks a lot about his childhood, and let's just say it wasn't exactly normal.
Oh, really?
His parents were passionate.
Ha.
Like there's this story about them having a huge argument about mashed potatoes.
Mashed potato.
Yeah, mashed potatoes.
Oh.
And somehow that led to, well, a moment of passion on the kitchen floor.
You're kidding.
Nope. I mean, that's just one example, but you can see how that kind of upbringing could shape someone.
Yeah, no kidding. It probably explains a lot about his independent spirit, always doing things his own way.
Exactly. It's almost like he was hitting those green lights he talks about even as a kid.
Makes sense.
Speaking of green lights, let's talk about that philosophy.
Okay, so he uses traffic lights to make life decisions.
It seems like it, but I'm not exactly sure how it works.
Yeah, break it down for me.
So he talks about not just waiting for the perfect moment, but actually putting yourself in situations where those green lights are more likely to show up.
Huh. Okay.
Like when he got his big break in, dazed and confused.
What about it?
Well, he just happened to be at a hotel bar talking to a producer over drinks, and things just sort of took off from there.
Right place, right time?
Kind of. But he was also putting himself out there, looking for opportunities.
So it's not just dumb luck. It's about making your own luck.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. He talks about being prepared, having a vision, and then being open to those unexpected things that might pop up.
I like that. Go with the flow, but have a plan, too.
That totally reminds me of how he changed his career.
Oh, yeah. How so?
The book review calls it the McConaughey's.
Yeah.
Going from romantic comedies to more serious roles.
Change.
He even turned down $14.5 million to do it. He wanted to do projects that he felt passionate about, what he calls stories I could sweat over.
Wow, he really walked the walk. What does that tell us about his green light philosophy, though?
I think it shows that recognizing a green light can mean saying no to something that looks amazing on the surface.
You mean like the easy money?
Exactly. He knew that sticking to his comfort zone wouldn't get him where he wanted to be.
Makes you think. So what were these stories he wanted to sweat over? What made them different?
Well, he started picking roles that challenged him, ones that pushed him as an actor, made him think about bigger, more complex ideas.
Got it. Like what?
So there's Dallas Buyers Club, for instance. It totally transformed him physically and emotionally, playing a guy with AIDS.
Wow. Intense.
It was about more than just being a movie star for him.
It was about something deeper.
Yeah, it was about matching his work with what he believed in.
Gotcha. So he was all about finding projects that meant something to him. It makes you wonder, how did people react to that?
Apparently they loved it. This whole McConaughey's thing made people respect him more as a serious actor.
So he took a risk and it paid off.
Definitely. He wasn't just charming anymore.
He'd proven himself.
He even won an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club.
Nice. So it's about seeing those green lights, but also having the guts to act on them.
Even if it means taking a risk and going against what people expect.
Right on. But I gotta ask, how can normal people like us use this green light thing in our own lives?
Well, that's what I think is so cool about his story.
What do you mean?
It's not just about making it in Hollywood. It's a way to look at life that anyone can use no matter what they do.
I'm listening.
It's about spotting those opportunities, the green lights, that fit with what you're passionate about, what you want to achieve.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then being brave enough to say yes to them, even if it means doing something scary.
Stepping out of that comfort zone.
Exactly. And maybe even saying no to things that look good but aren't really right for you.
Makes sense. But how do we know when it's a real green light and not just us getting carried away?
Well, that's where the hard work comes in, right?
I guess so. Like what?
McConaughey talks a lot about knowing yourself.
Okay.
Understanding what you believe in, what your goals are, what you love to do.
Got it. So you got to be in tune with yourself.
Yeah, and then you can see if an opportunity really fits with that or if it's just a distraction.
Makes sense. So it's all about being intentional, really thinking about what you want before you can even start spotting those green lights.
Totally. But what about when things go wrong? What about those red lights or even yellow lights that pop up?
McConaughey actually talks about those moments a lot in the book.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't pretend they don't happen.
That's refreshing.
He even calls them yellow lights. You know, like those times when you have to slow down or stop and think.
Interesting.
They make you reevaluate, maybe even change direction completely.
So instead of looking at those setbacks as failures,
Yeah.
he sees them as chances to learn and grow.
Exactly. He even says that sometimes those detours can lead to better things than you could have imagined.
Like what? Does he give any examples?
Yeah, early in his career, he was offered a ton of money to be in a bunch of romantic comedies.
Wow, that sounds like a dream come true.
You'd think so, right? Fame, fortune, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But he turned it down.
Why?
He felt like it would have been a trap, creatively speaking.
That must have been a tough decision, especially with all that money on the line.
Yeah, but he realized that even though it looked like a green light from the outside, it didn't feel right on the inside.
So he was listening to his gut.
Exactly. He wanted to challenge himself, push his boundaries as an actor.
It sounds like he saw that green light for what it really was, a yellow light in disguise.
He was able to see past the surface and make a decision based on what he truly wanted.
So even opportunities that seem amazing can be yellow lights if they don't line up with our goals and values.
It's about knowing the difference between what looks good and what feels right.
And sometimes those yellow lights are more important than the green lights.
You think so?
Yeah, they wake us up, make us rethink our path, and make changes that lead to where we're supposed to be.
Like a course correction.
Exactly. McConaughey is basically saying sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself.
I like that.
But how do we know when a yellow light is telling us to change direction, or if it's just a temporary bump in the road?
That's where your intuition comes in, that gut feeling.
Oh, okay.
You got to be honest with yourself, recognize when something's not working anymore, even if it means letting go of something that seemed promising.
So it's about having the courage to course correct, to see those yellow lights as chances to grow and redirect. So we've talked about his career and his philosophy, but the review also mentions his personal life.
Oh, yeah. What about it?
What does he say about relationships and being a dad?
Well, for McConaughey, relationships are all about being real and knowing yourself.
Okay.
He says you got to know who you are, what you believe in, and what you need before you can truly connect with someone else.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
You got to take care of yourself first.
And he applies that to being a father, too.
Does he really?
Yeah, he talks about leading by example, being present with his kids, and letting them figure things out on their own.
So he's not trying to force them into a certain mold.
Nope. He encourages them to find their own green lights, their own version of success.
He's giving them the tools to navigate their own journeys.
He also teaches them resilience.
Yeah.
You know, how to bounce back from setbacks.
He's got a very hands-on approach to parenting.
He sees it as a way to guide and support, not control.
It's fascinating how this idea of embracing yellow lights and seeing setbacks as opportunities for growth is woven into everything he does, from his career to his family.
It's definitely a recurring theme.
The review also mentioned that McConaughey has a spiritual side.
Yeah, that's right.
How does that fit into his worldview?
Interestingly enough, he doesn't follow any specific religion.
Oh, really?
He describes his spirituality as a very personal journey.
Okay.
It's a mix of self-reflection, gratitude, and a deep connection with nature.
So it's less about rules and rituals and more about finding meaning in a way that resonates with him personally.
Exactly.
Does he explain how this personal spirituality influences his outlook on life? We were talking about McConaughey's spirituality, right? It sounds like he's kind of made his own unique approach to it.
Yeah, he's taken bits and pieces from different places, different experiences he's had.
So it's not like he follows one specific religion or anything.
Right, he talks about needing to connect with something bigger than himself, whether that's nature, the universe, or even a higher power, whatever that means to him.
Makes sense.
He finds peace in being outdoors, thinking about his life, and being thankful for what he has.
It's like he's made his own spiritual path, one that works for him.
Exactly, and he really emphasizes self-reflection.
You mean like taking the time to think about your beliefs and why you do the things you do?
Yeah, he believes that real growth comes from looking inside yourself and dealing with the stuff you might be trying to avoid.
So it's not about what other people think or what society tells you to do.
It's about being true to yourself, figuring out what your own internal compass is telling you.
and living a life that feels authentic.
That's the key.
And that seems to connect back to his Greenlights philosophy, right?
Absolutely. He says that to recognize those green lights, you got to really know yourself first.
Your values, your dreams, all of that.
Right. It's like you need to know where you're going before you can spot the signs that point you in the right direction.
Makes sense.
He uses this analogy of a ship sailing on the ocean.
Okay, I like that.
He says if you don't have a destination in mind, you're just drifting around.
Aimlessly.
But if you know where you want to go, you can adjust your sails and use the wind to get there.
And those green lights are like the wind that pushes you forward.
Exactly.
But what about the storms? Those yellow lights that try to knock you off course?
Well, McConaughey sees those challenges as chances to grow and change.
In a good way.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
believes that facing those tough times, those fears, those obstacles, it makes you stronger.
And it helps you understand yourself better.
Right. It's like those storms test how strong your sails are and make you a better sailor.
You learn how to navigate those rough waters.
He also talks about being thankful, even when things are hard.
Gratitude.
Yeah, he says that focusing on what you're grateful for changes how you see things.
Helps you see the good even when things are bad.
It's like finding those silver linings.
I like that.
And that gratefulness fuels his optimism, his belief that even when things are tough, there's always a reason to keep going.
To keep looking for those green lights that will lead you to a better place.
That's the spirit.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Matthew McConaughey and his Greenlights philosophy, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think his story reminds us that life is full of surprises, good and bad.
It's a journey.
Yeah, and it's about accepting that, learning from our mistakes, and trusting that even those yellow lights can lead us somewhere amazing.
It's about seeing those green lights, those chances that fit with who we are and what we want.
And being brave enough to go after them, even if it means stepping outside our comfort zones.
It's about trying new things, taking risks.
And most importantly, it's about being thankful for the ride, for all the lessons we learn along the way.
For all the unexpected moments that remind us that we're right where we're supposed to be.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it. We've explored Matthew McConaughey's crazy life, his Greenlights philosophy, and even his spiritual side.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to look for those green lights in your own life and to embrace the adventure, bumps and all.
Keep on trucking.
Until next time, keep chasing those green lights.